Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another episode here on the SItrep podcast. It's me, Risky Jim, saying hello on another Wednesday evening. Today we're going to be building some scenarios for some upcoming games that we're going to play with AirWar C21. So AirWar C21 is a great little system by, let me see here, let me pull up, let me give credit where credit's due. AirWar C21 is a great little system by Wessex Games, which allows you to pretty realistically, within the confines of a game, of course, recreate modern air-to-air dogfight combat. Now, recently, we've been doing a lot of Gulf War, Persian Gulf War, Desert Storm material. This, of course, is in connection to the upcoming 30th anniversary of these events. The 30th anniversary of the actual beginning of Desert Storm, the actual shooting war, starting, of course, with the air phase, starts in about 3 days. That would be January 16th here in the West. It was actually already, I think, 2:43 in the morning. Local time, there over the sky, and the skies over Baghdad, early in the morning of January 17th, local. But for us, it was basically January 16th. So to that effect, we've already had part one of our Op Center series go out, covering the build-up and how this conflict kind of sort of got started, and the deployments and all the UN resolutions. How the military got deployed there and what phases that went through. That's all part of Desert Storm. Pretty much we set up the game board, to sort of coin a phrase there. And what we're going to start off with Saturday's episode is the actual beginning of not ground combat, the actual phase of the war. The shooting war begins on January 16th. So this whole Op Center series was kind of timed so that the air war part, the initial combat part of our Desert Storm series, would come out on the exact 30th anniversary. So that's coming up in a couple of days. Saturday, probably early-ish in the morning of Saturday, January 16th, coming up in a couple of days. And immediately after that, on Sunday the 17th, we're probably going to have our usual Sunday gaming. Not entirely sure who's going to be online for that, who's going to be signed up for that. One of the options that I'm looking at for Sunday's game is, again, some more AirWar C21. So, obviously, AirWar C21 is about jet fighter combat, air-to-air combat. How much air-to-air combat was there really in the Gulf War? Not very much on the grand scheme of things, but more than enough to do some good gaming with. Especially at the first day or two of the conflict. Iraq actually still had an Air Force, sort of, during those first 24 to 36 hours. So that's obviously where you're going to see most of the air-to-air combat. So that's where we're going to have some AirWar C21 games to see if we can, recapture or recreate a little bit of that in our game, because we're here to game. So one of the dogfights that I wanted to take a look at was, or I should say, took place at a spot called the H3 Airfield. Now that's not much of a name, but it's been there for a while. I remember the Israelis hit that as far back as 1967. The Israelis hit that as part of their Operation Focus airstrikes way back when. In the 1967 war. It's somewhere way out here. It's an airfield literally in the middle of nowhere. But it's close enough to threaten Israel. Believe it or not, close enough to threaten Syria. Iraq and Syria do not always see eye to eye. In fact, on the ground, Syria had quite a large ground force on our side, if you can believe it, fighting against the Iraqis. So even though they're both Arab states, even though they're both Sunni Arab states, and they kind of both are led by, or at the time, they were both sort of led by the same party. They were both led by their own versions of the Ba'athist party. Sometimes the people that are most like you turn out to be your biggest enemies. So, yeah, there was like this big Ba'athist rivalry between Iraq and Syria for the longest time. It led to a lot of conflict. Anyway, I don't know why I got off on that tangent, but the point is, this H3 Airfield has been in wars before, as far back as 1973, and it was hit again at the outset of the Gulf War in January of 1991. It's somewhere around there. It's literally in the middle of nowhere. So, yeah, we're pretty much just going to build the game file today, guys, because obviously we're not gaming today. Bill gave me a call earlier in the day, and turns out there were some things going on up there, so he wasn't able to stream today, and he asked me to cover. So I don't really have any, obviously I don't have a game that I can show you. I don't really have anything that I can present. So instead, we're going to take a peek behind the curtain and see about actually going in, creating one of these game files. Because Science Teacher says, me a tangent? Never. Hey, I'm not as bad at tangents as some people I could mention. But those people might watch the video later, so I don't want to, make fun of anybody. I am not the tangent king. Okay, so let's see what we got here so far. This map is partially done, or I should say this file is partially done. This is our map. It's a random slice of extreme western Iraq. The date might not be exactly right, and the actual location of the H3 Airfield, for our situation, that's going to be indicated by this little targeting icon over here. It's not exactly right. Again, we're talking about an air game, and in an air game, your game board is basically a blue sheet with a grid on it. Actually, you don't even have a grid on it. It's just basically a sheet of blue. So this is almost decorative, as far as, none of this data in the map actually means anything outside of the grid. The little yellow grid you see there, that's for game purposes. And of course we have our little virtual rulers here, and our little virtual measuring wheel that we can use, rotate any way we want in order to facilitate game movement, measure turns, execute maneuvers, as we've seen in AirWar C21 games, things of that nature. The most important thing when it comes to making virtual rulers like this could go anytime you want to take. There's a lot of talk with COVID and everything else like that about taking tabletop games virtual, and you can do that. It's easier than it sounds. Even like straight out 28 millimeters, standard 28 millimeter miniature games, you can do it. You don't even need a grid like this. The one thing you do need, though, is you do need a measuring piece. So you see here where this measuring wheel is not exactly scaled to the grid of the table. So there we go. Now it's a little bit better. I want all these little hash marks to match up with the hash marks on the table, so that when I do my measurements, it's real. It actually gives a realistic, or I should say an accurate measurement. Obviously, you can't, put a ruler up to your screen like you can, a tape measure on an actual 6x4 table or something like that. So you have to have something that's kind of built into your gaming file, so that it can, scroll and shrink and zoom and whatever, with your game file. You don't want, whereas the ruler has to always be in scale with the table, obviously. It's a little tedious, but once you get it set up, it's fine. It's pretty easy. Okay, so the map is pretty much ready. Now it's just time to make some pieces. So I've got some pieces that are almost done down here. I've been steadily building up my library, so to speak, of AirWar C21 playing pieces. Of course, most people probably remember we started off with AirWar C21 in our Falklands series way back in the day, and now we're going to try. We've tried it with some. We called it Team Yankee. No, we called it Yankee Squadron, or World War III. Air-to-air combat games, and now we're going to give it a shot with Gulf War, the 1991 Gulf War. Sorry. So I have to add some more planes. We never forget the British, because a lot of people like to do that. So I've got my Tornadoes in here. I've got US Air Force F-15s, simply enough. US Navy F-18s. These could also be US Marine Corps F-18s, or Canadian CF-18s. Canadian F-18s were in action in the Gulf War. I think they had 18 of them there. Coincidentally. I left their markings kind of agnostic, so I could, like there's no huge Canadian maple leaves, there's no U.S. Army, well, there wouldn't be Army for F-18s, but U.S. Navy, U.S. Marine Corps markings on there. I'm trying to keep it, where I don't need that many pieces. I will have to scale these and put what I call a spin button on them. That's that little blue speck there that we see there in the center of the miniature. That actually shows where the plane is, because these grids are like a mile per square. Obviously the plane is not to scale, so we want to show exactly where the actual aircraft is. So like I said, these aren't completely done, but they're close. These are F-15Es as opposed to F-15Cs. The first thing you might notice is there's a lot of ordnance under the wings. The F-15E is the Strike Eagle. It has different electronics in it, so it's more geared toward ground attack. The F-15E Strike Eagle was the plane that tried to kill the Warthog. So back in the 1980s, I know this is going to sound crazy, the Air Force didn't think much of the A-10. The Air Force was more or less run by what they called the fighter mafia. It was a series of generals, or a bunch of generals who were who had come up mostly from fighter squadrons back in their younger years, and they were very, very, pro-fighter. They didn't want to waste time with a lot of, other kinds of aircraft. They're like, look, the Army's getting the Apache. This is back in the 80s. The Army's getting the Apache. They have all the ground support they need. Why are we wasting time with, oh God, what is this ugly, god-awful looking, terrible look flying junkyard over here? Oh, it's the A-10 Warthog, or technically the Thunderbolt too. Everyone calls it the Warthog because it's so ugly. Gotta remember, Warthog did not start off as a friendly nickname. It was an insult. Everyone didn't like this, this plane was not highly regarded among the upper echelons of the Air Force. The pilots certainly loved it because it was very nice to fly, but sorry about that. The Air Force was not. The Air Force, brass was not a fan at all. Because science teacher says, yeah, they're ugly, but they're so cool. Yes, they are, and a few people kind of suspected this in the 80s, but the big Air Force brass didn't. And you can see that. You can confirm this by looking at what they were doing with their A-10s. There were no A-10s in Air Force service, or I should say very, very few A-10s in Air Force service by the mid to late 80s. They had all been rotated back to Air National Guard and Air Force Reserve. The few that the Air Force kept, they kept as the OA-10 forward air controllers. They weren't even used as combat planes. They were like, we got them, we already paid for them, we might as well get some use out of them. Obviously, the Gulf War would turn this around when the A-10 finally got a chance to really show what it could do, beyond the shadow of a doubt. But the reason I got off on that tangent again is, it was the F-15E that the Air Force brass was looking at. They say, okay, look, if we have to do an airstrike, if we have to give the ground pounders some support, it's going to be something like the F-15E. We're not going to have the A-10. But then, of course, Desert Storm came along, and now the Air Force loves the A-10, obviously, because, there was no longer any debate. F-16Cs, we've seen them before. Now, here we're getting into some enemy planes, finally. The Mirage F1. This is an older Mirage. It's a newer version of the French Mirage. It's the Dassault Mirage F1. It's an older version than the 2000s and the 2000Cs that we see today, and that we saw with a lot of other advanced air forces back in 1991, especially in the Middle East. The French love to sell Mirages. They sold Mirages to anyone, anyone with any kind of money. So that's a plane that you're going to see in combat all over the world. The Mirage, the old Mirages, the Mirage 2s, 3s, and 5s, which I think were actually Israeli daggers, I think they called them. You find those all over the world. In fact, we've seen those, the old Delta Wing ones. We see those in our 1982 Falklands games. But this is a little bit more modern than the ones we saw in the Falklands games, and not quite as advanced as the Mirage 2000s that you see flying around later in the 1990s and even today, really. We have F-15s again, but this time in Saudi Arabian markings. Saudi Arabians, even back then, had a lot of F-15s. A lot of other Arab nations also flew the Mirage F1. I think Qatar had some, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain. Again, it's one of those planes that you're going to see all over the place. It's the T-55 of fighter planes. The French make them, by the dozen, and they sell them to anybody with any kind of cash. And the killer here, although not really historically borne out, but I'm surprised that. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Is the Israeli Air Force? I'm sorry, not the Israeli Air Force. Whoa, that's a slight typo there. The Iraqi Air Force, MiG-29. So Iraq did have about 30 of these planes for the Gulf War, and they're probably the most dangerous plane that you're going to see in a 1991's Iraqi, fighter force. Ironically, it did not score. A MiG-29 did not score the one and only air-to-air combat kill in the Gulf War. That was a MiG-25 Foxbat. Kind of a fluke. But a MiG-25 Foxbat did actually manage to shoot down one of these. U.S. Navy F-18 off of USS Saratoga, killing the pilot. It was the coalition's only air-to-air combat loss in the entire Gulf War. A lot more planes were brought down by accident and especially ground fire. But as far as air combat goes, only one aircraft was lost by any of the nations, and there were like 20 nations with air power in the Gulf War. It was a single U.S. Navy F-18 Hornet, again off of USS Saratoga. Okay, so, and of course I have some Tornadoes, like I said. You could also bring in Jaguars, you can bring in Buccaneers if you wanted to bring in more British stuff. Again, something like, 34 nations had military forces in the Gulf War in some capacity or another. At least 12, and that's just kind of a guess. I don't have the list in front of me. I'll tell you what, check out our Ops Center episode on Saturday. That has the exact list of what nations had air power. It may not be 12, it may be like 7 or 8. Anyway, there were a lot of air forces that had aircraft in the Gulf War. So, with all that out of the way, let's talk about building the rest of this game file. Alright, so the actual dogfight that I want to do. Actually, let me not do that. Hold on. The actual dogfight that I want to sort of take a stab at, and again, it's going to be an approximation. But did see MiG-29s at the H3 Airfield I was talking about before. And where were those F1s? Mirage F1s. And US Air Force F-15s. Now, H3 was hit a number of times by a number of different forces throughout those first 48 hours. One of these other strikes that you might read about was with US Navy F-18s. So the US Navy F-18, notice it says FA-18. It's a true multi-role aircraft. So the US Navy is flying in its Hornets in the attack role. This thing is loaded with bombs, cluster munitions, runway busters, the whole 9 yards, GBU cluster munitions. It's got a couple of sidewinders just to kind of, take care of itself. And it's kind of, buzzing along there, heading towards this, particular runway. It gets intercepted by two of these Mirage F1s. Oops, let me fix this again. Damn, I made that mistake a bunch of times. There we go. These Iraqi Mirage F1s. The pilot literally just kind of uses his thumb and kind of flips from attack mode to interception mode, or to fighter mode. All the software changes, all the target acquisition changes, all the weapon suites kind of change out, at least, the arming and the target acquisition mechanisms inside the plane. He engages these two F1s, knocks them both down, barely changing course. I'm assuming with his, front target designated IR guided sidewinders. Flips back to attack mode, and he's back towards the airfield. And without, literally skipping a beat, he continues on his mission. That's the way multi-role fighters are supposed to work. It doesn't always happen that way, but that's sort of the mission. That's at the same runway. It's not the battle we're going to do on Saturday. I apologize, on Sunday. But again, a number of people from a number of different air forces, nations, and so on hit this same runway a number of times. It was important to knock it down and keep it knocked down because of where it was. It was sort of posed, again, way out there in the west, so it's sort of on the extreme left wing. This is where 18th Airborne Corps is trying to do its thing, and the 101st Airborne Division, loaded up with Blackhawks, does not need MiG-29s coming out of the west and shooting down their Blackhawks. So the Air Force had their work cut out for them. So the first thing I'm going to do is really shrink down the size of these planes, because they are I know they're not supposed to be to scale with the actual table, but they're really big. The F-15 is still going to be the biggest plane on the table. Obviously I'm being a little approximate with my scaling here. To my knowledge, the MiG, with the possible exception of the MiG-25, I'm pretty sure the F-15 is the longest fighter flying. It's a big bird. She's not the biggest, she's not the heaviest, she's not the largest. That still belongs to the F-14 Tomcat. And again, the MiG-25 might be a contender for that. But there's 3 or 4 fighters around the world that are just really big, just physically large. And again, the F-15 isn't the thickest girl up there, but she is definitely the longest. I think 70 feet, tip to tip. So what that means for us here in our gaming table is that I'm going to keep that playing piece really large. Make sure it's longer than all my other planes. Ooh, I don't need this MiG-29 because I've already got one in Iraqi markings. Notice, obviously the colors are different, but what's really important here is the markings. No red stars, we're not fighting the Soviets. These little green triangles, this is what you see on Iraqi aircraft. I hesitate to call them, that's their roundels, but that's kind of what the roundels look like, because they're not round. For some reason they're that weird green triangular shape. So what I'm going to do here is I want to put this blue dot in the center of the aircraft so that shows the exact location on the table where the aircraft is. You don't have to worry about, well, am I shooting at the tail? Am I shooting at the nose tip? Because sometimes the arcs and the ranges get really, really specific in this kind of thing. So it's very, very tough to make sure you know exactly where the plane is. Mr. Rasmus, hello, how you doing? Welcome to the stream, sir. To another episode of Oriskany Fills In. Because we've sort of, it's not really going to work out for the team to keep doing Tuesdays and Thursdays. So we are, on the one hand, consolidating our week show, or our weekly show, not our podcast, not our weekend gaming, but our show during the week. We're sort of consolidating our Tuesday and Thursday show into a single show on Wednesday. So yeah, it's half as many shows, but the flip side is we want to absolutely make sure that we always, commit to showing you guys something on Wednesday. So I'm going to group these two together. All right, cool. Now that's all one big piece. That's one gaming piece. You can change the number. You can change, anything you want. The only problem now is that if you'll notice, when I go to rotate it, it's actually doing a small loop. Look at the blue dot. We want the blue dot to stay exactly in the center of the aircraft as it does its turns. Because as these aircraft execute their turns, they're not allowed to side slip like that. So we have to figure out how to do that. Fortunately, oof. Oh, there we go. Riskin has the answer. Okay, it's still looping a little. This is just going to be a little bit of patience here to... Holy crap. I hope I can do this. Sorry guys, this is kind of the tedious part of the process. It's still spinning. Damn. Hold on. How much more on this do I have to do? Oh god, it's... Oh, you know what it is? I went past it. Alright. Sorry. Oh, lordy. That should... Damn it. That's pretty close. We're getting there. Obviously, this is why you do this once. Now that should work. I'm looking at where the little axis of the main piece is. That should freaking do it. Huh. Oh, it's not doing it up and down on the vertical axis. I'm so worried about the horizontal axis. Hold on. There we go. You see where the blue dot is basically motionless? That's what we're looking for. That way when we make our turns, the plane's actual blue dot position remains honest. Alright, I want to get fussy for just a second here. Oop, that was it. I overdid it. That should be just about perfect. Alright, that is damn close. Cool. Now I can make as many mixes as I want. Once I get one of them correct. Oh no, that's not what I meant. Come on, copy the whole thing. There we go. And quite simply, we just make it MiG-29 number 2. Sweet. Alright, MiGs are done. Why I'm not doing any image stuff. Yeah, here's the great thing about working with high resolution graphics, or even medium any kind of graphics really, is that there's a lot of zooming involved. Zoom, 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 and your eyes stay young. You don't, you know, freaking kill yourself, you know, trying to stare at a tiny little, you know, 8mm miniature or whatever. 8mm. Who plays 8mm? Oops. Sorry about that. You guys know what I mean. Alright, let's get these Mirages fixed. Group. Alright, cool. Now that I kind of know what I'm doing, this will hopefully go a little faster on this one. Trying to get, I don't know if you guys can see, I'm trying to get the axis of the piece, which is obviously where the blue dot's going to be, and the axis of the overall assembly. That's the piece, that's the name, that's the blue dot, where they all line up. And that's kind of your cheat code for, like there I went a little too far. That's sort of your cheat code for getting this thing where it'll spin properly. Alright. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put this, I'm going to use this grid. So you see where the grid's right there on the little white dot right there shows exactly where the center point of the piece is. So I'm going to make sure I get the blue dot along the dot. Sorry, the blue dot along that grid. Alright, let's test it out. Let's see if that blue dot remains central. That's pretty close. Sweet. So in this game, what I'm going to kind of do is put two F-18s, two F-15s, sorry about that, Pop, two F-15s up against two Mirage F1s and two MiG-29s. We might almost have a fair game. So let me get that lined up on the middle of the plane. Sweet. Alrighty. I'm looking at the... Oh, you know what I'm going to do? Again, play smart. My dad works in contracting and construction, and he has a joke. Well, it's not really a joke. It's kind of a lament. Where it's like you always get the hang of something right when you're done. Like say you've got 10 cabinets to put in the kitchen or something. Or whatever it is you're working on, you get the hang of what it is you're doing right when you get done. And sure enough, here I am on the F-15s, and I'm finally sort of getting the hang of how to do these assemblies quickly and rather easily. Smidge more. That should be pretty close. Let's see. That's damn near perfect. Cool. Copy, paste, and now we have two U.S. Air Force F-15s. Oops. Alright, cool. We have our 6 gaming pieces. We're ready to go. Now, I already have prepared some other small-time playing pieces we're going to need. We won't really need air-to-surface missiles since there won't be any harpoons or exocets in this game, but we do have short-range air-to-air missiles, medium-range air-to-air missiles. Those are going to be your Sparrows for the Americans, your AIM-9 Sidewinders for the Americans. For your Iraqis, I'm not sure yet, but we're about to look it up. We have some SAMs, heavy SAMs for SA-2s, and also some medium-range SAMs, medium SAMs. Those are probably going to be SA-8 Geckos, the Warthog killer. Quite a few coalition aircraft were brought down by Iraqi ground fire and surface-to-air missiles. So I'm sort of picturing that these might be almost a bigger threat than the actual Iraqi aircraft will. Because the difference between a Mirage F1 and an F-15, a 1990s F-15 is pretty serious. I.e., don't put your money on the Mirage F1. All right, so now we're just going to figure out some statistics on these aircraft. What was it? We have Mirage F1s. The Dassault Mirage F1. Not a bad little plane. I just don't want to take them up against U.S. Air Force F-15s. But the little Mirage F1s have help with their big brother, the Fulcrums, and also a lot of ground fire, especially in the range of missiles. So we're going to have missiles in our game. I already showed you guys those. And I also made up a quick table here for anti-aircraft artillery fire, depending on how close any coalition aircraft get to that target. Alrighty. So here I am looking at maneuver chits. We won't be using any British maneuver chits in this particular game, but I have them prepared just in case, for future games and sessions. My American ones are already done. I don't have any Iraqi ones done, and I don't have Photoshop on this particular. I don't have Photoshop on this particular computer. Photoshop's on my other computer, guys, my non-streaming computer. When I try to stream on my Photoshop computer, that's when you guys get the really bad streams. So I wonder if I can create it here in Excel. Or not Excel, yeah, Excel. How creative can I get in Excel? More fill colors. Let's get a nice... It's tempting to make everything tannish or sandy colored, khaki colored, but what happens then is you lose... you can't really see it on the table. Hopefully I should get away with that because I'm giving everything a... oops. I'm giving everything a white boundary there. Oh my god, what the hell, man. He just wiped out my... There we go. Ooh, I already have an Iraqi flag. This is the kind of thing that goes into making these games, folks. That we play on Sundays. A lot of kind of tedious work. Not unlike painting a miniature in some ways. In that it is time consuming and tedious. Actually, I think this is going to work. Except I just screwed it up. Cool, I'll take it, that's good enough. Alright, now a quick little bit of text. This might be easier than I thought. Oh, text box. This is a kind of an inefficient way of doing it, but it's better than going to another computer and opening up Photoshop and, you know, etc., etc. No outline, no fill, no outline. Come on, man. 0, 0, 0. You and your damn default values that nobody ever uses. They just get in everyone's way and wastes our time. It looks like Arial, doesn't it, the font? Dude, how about just regular Arial, please? Thank you. Bold, obviously. It's obviously going to be a few notches down in the... Yeah, this will be really easy in Photoshop. The problem is I don't want to go deal with Photoshop right now. Okay, last but not least, a little bit of white around there. Things that I'm sure you're fascinated by. Microsoft Excel does not have an external sort of an outline. You have to do this when you do like text outline, it goes internal, not external, which is kind of a pain. So what I can do instead is give it a false glow, and I kind of get the same effect. That did not work with the paragraph. Damn it. Annoying. Alright, there we go. You know what, guys, for a quick little weekend game, that is going to be what we call in the business good enough. Alright, you're watching the magic happen, folks. And by magic, I mean... Okay, what else is going on here, Mr. Chat? I did pick up an image. Rasmus says in the chat, I did pick up a map package. Campaign Cartographer 3, CamoWorks. CamoWorks. I think they also do some stuff with Steel Panthers. Am I completely off base with that, Rasmus? I've seen that name, CamoWorks, pop up in some Steel Panthers threads. I think sometimes I see stuff like that, although again I could be kind of mistaken there. It's like Camo Works or Camo Workshop or something like that. I mean, you can see where the Iraqi flag isn't exactly perfectly centered on some of these. You know, it's fine. As I go back and I fix it, and apparently it wasn't fine, but you guys know what I mean. Okay, now I just have to get the values in here. We have the unload maneuver, we then have the high yo-yo maneuver. These are maneuver cards that you can play in the game. Oh, for crying out loud, man, give me a break. Oh, yo, it's not that hard. And the high yo-yo is a 7+. Holy crap. Sorry, I lost track of what I was saying. So what you can do is you can do certain maneuvers in the game, and besides your just normal turns and your your pivots and your accelerations and decelerations, there's also special maneuvers that you can try. This is where the three-dimensional aspect of aerial combat actually comes into play. And these tiles, these tiles are kind of what get put down when you declare one of those maneuvers. And then, of course, whether or not you succeed or fail, you get different... Sorry about the pop again. This mic is too close. When you succeed or fail, that's where you get the different results. Immelman is one of my favorites, I'm not going to lie. Except right now, it's not fitting on my... Have to do. That's not fitting very well on my card. And that's good enough. Alright, break turn. I like split S's too. Split S's and Immelmans are maneuvers by which you can Alright, hold on. This one's differently. It's in 2 lines. What was I gonna say? 5/6+. Immelmans and split S's are aerial combat maneuvers by which you can change your direction in game terms almost like for free. Not for free, what's the word I'm looking for here? Almost to any, like a 360-degree change in any direction, if you succeed. So basically, what a Immelman or a split S is. We'll talk about an Immelman first. It's named after a guy. I think his name was Max Immelman. He was a World War I fighter ace. He invented the maneuver. It's a famous fighter maneuver. You guys probably read about it in the past. And what you do is, for the Immelman, you pull straight up till you're pretty much going vertical, and you better be able to dump some extra speed into your afterburners, because if you fail this roll and you lose too much thrust or too much speed, because you're basically standing straight up on your tail, you are going to be in all kinds of trouble when you hit that stall, and God knows where you're going to wind up. It's not good. Actually, stick to this one. This one I've already resized that text. So you go up, and then of course while you're going straight up, you can corkscrew in pretty much any direction you want. And then when you roll over on your back, and then you re-corkscrew around so the earth is back beneath you again, you kind of get that your horizon reoriented. If you kind of picture all that 3D in your head, you can now be pointing any direction you want. Again, if you pull it off. A split S is sort of almost the opposite. Split S, the pilot's flying level, he rolls over onto his back, he pretty much goes into a Stuka dive straight down, again, corkscrewing any which way he wants with his flaps and his ailerons, and then, once he gets where his nose, or I should say where his canopy is pointing the way he wants, he pulls back out of his dive, and yeah, he's given up, 1,000 or 2,000 feet of altitude, depending on what kind of aircraft he's in, but he's now pretty much pointing wherever he wants. Because you're not turning and you're not rolling on that 2D plane. You're going into a third dimension, obviously either straight up or straight down, and you're executing your turn that way via a corkscrew roll, which is a lot easier to do than a actual banking turn. The problem is, as I've learned to my regret in many games, Vietnam games and Falklands games, when you try a Immelman or a split S and you're not properly set up for it, you have to manage your thrust and your speed and your momentum in this game. Yeah, bad things happen, and then you fail the roll on top of that. It's not good. Barrel, roll, and turn, cool, 6+. We got that one ready. Awesome. We already have a brake turn, 5-6. Alright, cool. I think barrel roll and we're done. Barrel roll is 5+. So you can do a barrel roll, you can do a barrel roll and turn. Barrel roll is, everyone knows what a barrel roll is. It's a nice way to sort of side slip to the left or to the right. You do lose a little bit of speed doing it, because again, you're banking up and then you're doing the rollover on your back, but as you're doing that, you're sort of either, depending on which way you're rolling, you can, you maintain your correct orientation, or I should say maintain your original orientation, but you're now either, again, depending on the size of your aircraft and how fast you're going, a tactically significant distance, either off to the left or right. Also barrel rolls, barrel roll and turn, definitely brake turn. I think a split S and an Immelman, not a high yo-yo or the unload. But some of these maneuvers also give you what's called a defensive bonus. So if someone's shooting a missile at you and a missile is coming up your tailpipe, you do that barrel roll, it helps shake the missile. It gives you a bonus when it comes to evading that missile whenever it does finally hit. Okay, so we will not need any Soviet maneuver cards in this game coming up. So we can go ahead and move those here. We'll be sticking with our Americans and our Iraqis. Alright guys, we're getting close as far as being ready to actually run this game. All the charts are already set up. When I say charts, I mean like the rules charts. Here's what's not set up. The actual stats for the aircraft. I'm not entirely sure how much that we're going to do tonight. Because again, we're just trying to sort of, make sure that we meet our schedule. And it's not really the most as boring as the stream has already been, that's where it gets really boring. Not to put too fine a point on it. Alright, cool. So yeah, we've got our turn sequence. We've got all of our, game relevant charts that pop up a lot. We're ready to go. We just now, these are not all the correct values for these aircraft. None of these aircraft right now are correct. I have to actually look up some of this stuff. So, okay, here we go. Here we have some of the aircraft that are going to be involved in our upcoming Gulf War games. Obviously, the F-15 Eagle that we see here. I'm pretty sure that's a C, but I could be wrong. Actually, you know what? Let me not say that. One way that you can tell the difference between an F-15 and F-15C, the fighter, and an F-15E Strike Eagle is obviously the Strike Eagle is usually carrying a lot more ground attack ordnance. This guy's not carrying any ground attack ordnance. I'm looking at AMRAAMs. They're under his fuselage, under his wings. I'm looking at, looks like some AIM-9 Sidewinders. And I'm not sure if those are more AMRAAMs or some Sparrows. But definitely no ground ordnance. And some external fuel tanks, obviously. Another way that you can tell is, and I'm not really sure exactly where to look, the F-15 Strike Eagle has two 20mm cannon, if I'm not mistaken. And the cannon are right there, like near the wing roots. It has one on each side, whereas the F-15, the original F-15, only has the one. The remaining opponent is going to be the MiG-29 Fulcrum. That is in Iraqi markings. Here's the problem, and I kind of ran across this problem when making my next Op Center video. Get to the front, fool. There aren't too many pictures of these Gulf War aircraft in Iraqi markings. Strange that. Probably because the Air Force didn't exist after about 36 hours of ground war. And before that, Iraq was hardly the friendliest nation around. As far as, providing access to photographers and filmmakers, for their military. So finding good images of 1991, especially their more advanced planes, the MiG-29, the MiG-25, that are actually authentic and in the correct Iraqi markings, there are a handful, but there are not many. There are not many, and they're not that great. This, however, is, believe it or not, a CG rendering from DCS World. So, yeah, I was amazed at how how awesome their actual renderings are. Seriously good stuff. Same with this Mirage F1. This is another Iraqi plane that we're going to run across. In fact, we just put them on the table. It's an Iraqi Mirage F1 in Iraqi markings. F-15s, and then F-16s, which we'll probably be playing around with a little bit later. But not for today's game. Not for this week's game. For this week's game, I'm looking at F-15s, MiG-29s, and Mirage F1s. So, that's US Air Force, 1991. Let's see what we can find. So here are the rules for AirWar C21, and here is the data annex. So AirWar C21 originally came out, I think, in 2007, and it was very up to the minute. This happens 5 minutes ago. F-35s, MiG-29s, Sukhoi 27s, new Su-30s, all that stuff. Like right up to the minute. Aircraft. The game was popular, it was pretty successful, so they started coming out with this data annex. They've come out with a couple of them now. And what that is it starts to kind of march back in history. I've seen Google images of AirWar C21 1918. So they go as far back as World War I think, but I don't own that game and I haven't actually played it. But to make a long story short, they've been trying to expand. And for almost anything historical, I have to go to the annex because... Come on, where is the F-15? I have to go to the annex because, again, most of my stuff is somewhat... Here we go, F-15 Eagle. Most of my stuff is somewhat historical and not like, you know, modern, like 5 minutes ago modern. Okay, just to make it a little bit easier. Okay, F-15 has a minimum thrust of 5, a maximum speed of 28. That's about 1,400 knots at sea level, for those of you who might be wondering. It is a high-powered aircraft. No shit. You guys ever see an F-15 in an air show kick on its afterburners? The thing sets off car alarms from like 3 miles away. Yeah, it's a high-powered aircraft. Okay. The acceleration, deceleration values. Or thresholds, I should say. That's acceleration in phase 1 and phase 2 of a turn. Deceleration, -4, got it. Maneuver is high. Yeah, it doesn't turn on a dime. Gun is 76. Okay, yeah, that's definitely the single 20mm. That's the M61 Vulcan. That's the same gun that you see in the VODs, M163 VODs in Team Yankee. Also in the Phalanx that you see on U.S. Navy ships. The U.S. military has been in love with the M61 Vulcan 6-barreled 20mm chain gun since Vietnam. We still use it to this day. That's where you see that 76. That 76 you're going to see pop up a lot. It's got a shit ton of ammo. That's good. Ooh, +4 for bomber. Yeah, not the Strike Eagle. Damage points 8. She's a big girl. Chaff, she has 8. Flare, she has 8. ECM, -1. She has advanced electronics. Radar, +2L. Well, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Those old values are for the F-15 and, I'm sorry, the F-16. And, +1 to spot. Yeah, she's huge. Load points. She carries a lot of pylons. Year 1979. Well, yeah, we know. And she carries a lot of missiles. Alright, and I'll find out like what actual unit she belongs to later on. That was relatively painless. The MiG-29 Fulcrum A, yeah, we actually do know that. The MiG-29 that was there for the previous game this file was copied over from, that actually still kind of applies. So we'll go ahead and leave those on there. I may change out the missile load. I don't think they had access to Soviet missiles, but I will have to check that. Dun, dun, dun. Holy crap, man. The Americans have a lot of aircraft. So yeah, the data annex is literally just a book of stats that, I mean, as you can see here, there's 62 pages of just stats. Bombs, missiles, all the aircraft, all the different air forces, those aircraft, and you know, the aircraft is in service with different nations, even though it's the same type. It's going to have, like, here's the Kuwaiti F-18. Obviously that's going to be post-Gulf War. This is where you see Israel, Iraq. Okay, yeah, it doesn't have Iraq. Yeah, this is after Gulf War, so it doesn't give Iraq the MiG-29s, but we do see those Mirage F1s we were talking about. So let's take care of those. And this will pretty much wrap it up, because again, I'm pretty sure I can rely on those MiG-29 numbers. I just may change out the ordnance loadout, the missile loadout. Iraqi Air Force, 1991. Alright, so yeah, they're definitely slower than the F-15. There aren't many things in the world that are faster than an F-18. Medium maneuverability, really. Well, yeah, it is a Mirage. And we're looking at +2, +2. Not very agile. It is high powered though. Oh, that's medium power. Sorry. Cool. 66. This goes to a 7. Oop. Plus 2, 6. How in the world? Oh, that's a. Hold on. This is a post-war Mirage. I was gonna say, how does a Mirage have a better radar than an F-15? Let me check on that in just a second. Remind me to verify this value. +0. I work with Excel all day at work, and then I come home, and what do? I just basically work on Excel some more. Okay, let me verify. Let me see if I get any confirmation on what type of Air Force that was. Yeah, here's that list I was talking about where we actually go into what's in all these Iraqi Armed Forces. Okay, Mirage F1 multi-role aircraft. Oh yeah, the EQ and the BQ. Shit. All right. Damn. Okay, we did have the right variant after all, the EQ version of the F1 Mirage. Holy mackerel, that thing's got a friggin' kick-ass radar. I mean, as badass as the F-15 is, yeah, it's old. The F-15 kind of came out in the mid to early 70s. So even by 1991 Gulf War, she was a little long in the tooth. A good 20 years old. Oh, I still have a copy. Good. Hooray for clipboards. Okay. All right, I'll take it. The F4 and the 4L. That L means something. I'll have to look up what that L means. 0018 1980. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's going to be these kinds of missiles. And not like top of the line Soviet stuff. I could be wrong about that. Come on, man. Alt, copy, there we go. And ×2. R530s. Now these we have seen before. In our Falklands games. It's not the plane, it's the missiles that are on the plane. So this is confirmed, this is confirmed. The only thing left, oh no, is to confirm what missiles the Falklands would have been carrying. Not 100% sure how I'm going to do that. There's a book called F-15 versus MiG-29 UB. Okay, I'll check that out. There's a book called, I think Osprey comes out with it, called MiG-29 versus F-15. That's where most of the big dogfights were. The problem is I don't own it. So if anyone out there owns that book, I'm pretty sure it's Osprey Games. It's one of their Versa series. F-15 versus MiG-29 Fulcrum, 1991 Gulf War. If you can get back to me with what actual air-to-air missiles were carried on those MiG-29s, 5 MiG-29s were shot down by US Air Force F-15s. And of course they do not say what actual missiles they were carrying. I mean, I'll go with what the Soviets had, or what the Russians would have sent them. That might make them a little overpowered, because Russian missiles are usually pretty good. It also makes my life a little bit easier because guess what? I already have those stats on there. But I honestly, R-2017 and R-73. R-73, R-27. Oof. Yeah, see, Indian Air Force carries the Astros, so different countries carry different. Different countries carry even with when different countries use the same aircraft, sometimes the loadout is very different. And in air combat, that is huge. That is a big difference. Yeah, I know, guys. This is probably like the not so not the most exciting part of the stream, but this is where, you know, historical detail really makes a big difference. Tell you what I'm gonna do. Let me try this. Yes, I know all that. Give me the version, please. Alright. Does not say what version. Okay, what? Iraqi air-to-air victories? No. I do not know where you guys are getting your information from. This is nonsense. Oh, result damage. Okay, sorry, I didn't see damaged. Okay, I'll go with that. And only one actual aircraft destroyed. Oh, ooh, weapons. We know not only we know the pilot's name, we know what version of MiG-23, MiG-29, we know what squadron they were with, we have the type, we have the location of the actual battle, we have what they were engaged against, and we see the result. Okay, I gotta write this down. That's exactly what I was looking for. Was the weapon type R60 Mike Kilo and R27. Immelman or Split S, says Rasmus. You better wear your brown pants. That's the damn truth. F-16C seems to be 1979 in your setup there. Is it? Did I actually say that? Oh, wrong. Sorry. Oh, you're probably right. Again, it is the C, so it's not the first version. So you're probably right, Rasmus. Yeah, 1979. Cool. Oh yeah, I've got 1979 already there. Yeah, so again, already like 12 years old, that particular variant, and again, it's the C. There was an F-15, there was an F-15, oh no, there was an F-15A and B before that. Alright, cool, so we have the R-20, we have the R-27 already in there. That's basically the Russians, that's the real name of what NATO calls the A-10 Alamo. I just have to look up this R-60 MK. That's actually a really good source. Thank you very much. Again, guys, Wikipedia is a crappy source. But you know what Wikipedia does? Wikipedia has links to the good sources, where you get into every single aircraft. Literally down to, I know the pilot's name, I know what missile he fired, I know where it was, I know the date, I know the time, 0530 hours, 17, the day the war started, January 17th, 1991. The serial number of the plane that was hit, I'm not kidding, 580248. Yeah, this information's out there if you're serious. I know the squadron that he was actually in, 9th Squadron, Iraqi Air Force, 2nd Iraqi Air Defense, SOC, I'm not sure what that is. Strategic Area Command, Strategic Operations Command, I don't know. Cool. Yeah, at first I was really leery when I saw this source, because I saw like, what, you're claiming like 6 kills, air-to-air kills? Then I saw damage, destroyed. This is contested. We just read about this in Wikipedia. Whether or not an Iraqi MiG-29 actually managed to shoot down a British Tornado. People are not sure about that. The fact that the Tornado was shot down is not disputed. It was, was hit, was damaged, was trying to get out of the area, wound up crashing. In other words, what really brought down the plane is one of those strange cases. So I would call that an air-to-air victory if that was the case, because Americans definitely consider that an air-to-air victory. And there were 2 of those in the Gulf War, where very low-level evasive maneuvers caused the Iraqi plane that was chasing the EF-111 Raven to crash into the ground. That EF-111 pilot got the credit for the kill. It's called an air maneuver kill, or it's called a maneuver kill, when you cause the guy to crash, rather than actually shooting him down with guns or missiles. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to save this sucker. Good deal. Alright, meanwhile, back to this. We need to look up the R60. Here we go. The R60 is the AA-8 Aphid. Okay, good. Yep, see? There it is. A different missile. And a much poorer missile. Thank you very much. Good deal. Alright, now it's confirmed. AA-10 Alamo, yes, we know about that, and the other ones are the AA-8 Aphids. Now we just have to figure out how many. I'm assuming it's still 4 and 2. The Aphid is just an older medium-range air-to-air missile, in other words, big. So the weight point is probably still the same, but we will confirm that. Because guess what else the data annex has? It has air-to-air missiles in here as well. Air-based SAMs, land-based SAMs. There's no such thing as air-based SAMs. Sorry, land-based SAMs. Where are your air-to-air missiles? GBUs. Those are the big ground attack bombs. Mark 81s. This is all air-to-ground stuff. Anti-ship stuff. Come on, where's your air-to-air stuff? Gun pods. Here we go. Here's American air-to-air missiles. AA-8 Aphid, R60 MK. That's exactly the version we just saw. So again, it's a little bit of bookwork in the setup, but assuming you have the data annex for AirWar C21, you could really drill down and get really precise data. So we found the records that get down to as far as the guy's name and the serial number of the plane that was hit. With those kind of records, we now know exactly it was an R60 MK. That was the version of the AA-8 Aphid air-to-air missile. And we can go ahead and put these values in our chart. It is infrared, it is all target aspect, it is 3+, it is 3 to 18. Okay, so much for being a medium range missile. Maybe the Alamo's the air-to-air missile, or the medium range missile. 3+, 3 to 18, 3+, not quite as accurate. pretty damn accurate, though. Oh, totally, yeah, 1d6 versus 2d6. Yeah, the aphid is the short-range missile, the Alamo is the long-range missile. 1d6. Oh, yeah, look how small it is. Jeez. This is the load points. Quick double check. Sweet. R27T, is that what we saw in our little reference? Which I have now lost. R27R. What the hell did I do? R27R. Okay, that might be a different version of the R27. And guys, I know this looks really, really tedious, and it is really tedious, but trust me, if you don't think the type, the variant, whether it's an R, whether it's an MK, whether it's a T, you know, any stuff like that, if you don't think that makes a difference, I invite you to take a close technology-focused view of the air-to-air combat that took place in the Falklands. Those Harriers that the British were flying off HMS Hermes, HMS Invincible, were able to do what they did, not because they were Harriers, not because they were carrying the Sidewinder, they were carrying the Sidewinder AIM 9L, the L version, not the K version, not the E version, not the G version, the L. That was huge. That letter is why the Falklands War turned out the way it did. I'm telling you. The L is where the aircraft got this value. Target aspect all. I can lock on to your heat exhaust when you're driving towards me. When you're flying towards me. I do not have to get on your 6 and get on your back 60-degree arc. And if you don't think that makes a difference, log on and play AirWar C21 with me one time. And you try using these Magics and these R530s, which are almost as accurate as the other missiles that we're looking at in this game, but they don't have that ability to lock on from the target's front. You have to swing around behind them. So as your aircraft are closing from 500 miles away, 100 miles away, 50 miles away, 20, you know, as you're starting to close, he's already launching missiles at you, and he's already got you locked on before you even meet. And then you meet, you pass each other, then you might get a chance to turn around and get behind him, and you can finally lock on. Congratulations, you've already lost 80% of your planes. That was a huge difference. So to kind of come back around, that's why I'm going into such ridiculous detail. Or I should say it's not ridiculous, that's why it seems like, it might seem like I'm going into ridiculous detail on exactly what we're looking at here. R27R. Cool, let me find out what we're looking at here. Back to the data annex. R27R is the A-10B Alamo. A-10B Alamo, okay? That's going to be a different type of missile. So I have to match that R27R with what we have in our historical record. Okay, this is totally huge difference already. Holy crap. The very first value. IR, nope, SARH, semi-active radar homing. That's a difference. All the lock is going to be the radar of the plane, which is pretty good. 9 to 34, holy crap. Yeah, this is the medium range missile. Look how long range this thing is. Hits on a 5+, does 2d6 damage, 1986. Cool, okay, cool. Fixed all that mess. Cool. Oh boy. This, by the way, is why I always lose my Sunday war games, because my brain is already fried. By the time I actually sit, because I'm doing this. All right, that was a French missile. I don't know which. Yeah, right here, aspect, rear 180 or all. Wow, what a difference. IR briefly in service, damn it. R530, but they don't tell me which one. Not a single, well, hold on, let me see here. That's a very short document. I was hoping maybe we'd get a hint about what kind of ordnance these Mirages were carrying. None of the Mirages even scored a damage on any aircraft, so we don't get that detailed information. Alright, let me just make a call here because I don't want to be doing this all day. IR 130. Whoa! I'm gonna give them the most advanced the R30 I can find. And even that one only comes from 1980. It's already a 10-year-old missile, which is a long time in air-to-air combat. No, you know what? Because hold on. Yeah, R.530. They did not say .530 Super, or the Super F-130. The Super. In other words, hold on. Sorry. Here it says Super R30, Super R530. Dummy. It just says R130. It doesn't tell us which one. This one's briefly in service, so I won't use that. Also, it's even worse than the other ones. This is literally my best bet. 1962. Good grief. This is literally the best thing I can give them, at least for those R130s. I can't even read it right. R530, dummy. God, it's not that hard. R530. Semi-active radar homing. All. That's okay because it's got that plane has a kick-ass radar, so that's actually good. 12-26. The lock-on chance is either a dice roll or it says radar. Radar means that the missile does not lock on. The plane locks on for the missile and then launches it. It's whether or not the missile itself is using its own sensors to lock on, or the plane itself is locking on. And of course, they can't just make a guess because that missile might be carried on 20 different kinds of aircraft. Now here's where it gets let down a little bit. 7+ to hit on a D10. That's not so hot. With the kind of brake maneuvers that these F-15s are going to be doing, these 530s aren't going to be hitting very much. Okay. And then magic. Of course, there's like 3 different kinds of magic, and the source doesn't tell us which one. So I will give them the better magic, because those 530s are terrible. The Iraqis need some kind of help. Alrighty. Oops. Those are infrared guided. They are, it's all aspect. Very good. 3+ to lock. 5 to 20, definitely a short range missile. Short range AMRAAM, air-to-air missile. No, AMRAAM is advanced medium range. Sorry. Short range air-to-air missile is what I should have said. 3+ is the hit. 1d10 is the damage. Nice. And 0.5. 1985. Alright guys, we've got our missiles. We've got our missiles. We've got our aircraft. Everything's pretty much confirmed. I might screw around a little bit and maybe come up with actual historical details about what squadrons. I might leave that off. But all the technical information is now in there. I paste this over here, I think. What? Oh boy, that's annoying. Alright, I'll figure that part out later. There's a mismatch here. I try to copy the actual aircraft data to this little stuff underneath just so that it's easier to, I don't have to flip back and forth in the middle of the game. But we've got our pieces made, our missiles are ready, we have our game function counters created. Down here with our new Iraqi maneuver tiles, which came out pretty good, especially since I didn't even go to Photoshop to create them. We have our missiles are already prepared and ready to go. We have our data for both our aircraft and our missiles, or our guided ordnance, ready to go. We have our house rules chart for ground AA fire. Yeah, we're in pretty good shape. This game's pretty much ready to go. I'm gonna have to do a little bit of copy pasting just to get some of this stuff reformatted and put into a slightly easier format, so that all the aircraft data and all the missile data is right here on the same tab instead of over here on this data tab. I mean, this is all locked in, this is all correct, this has all been verified from the AirWar C21 annex and also historical records. We literally just did it in front of you. And we're also going to have to put that stuff here. This is where you actually track the speed, the initiatives, how much ammunition, any damage. This is the actual status bars for the aircraft in the game. So yeah, it looks like we're pretty much ready to go on this one. We'll see how this goes. If somebody gets back to me during the week and says, hey, I want a game on Sunday, but I'd rather do, who knows what, Valorant Victory, I want to do, Panzer Leader, I want to do something else, then we might not see this particular game on Sunday, but we'll be playing this shortly, even if it's only a solitaire game, because I want to have some gaming content for our upcoming, the video's already done, it's in the can, but Saturday you're going to see part 2, Air War of 1991 Gulf War, Desert Storm. And so pretty much the week starting from Saturday, at least for me, is going to be kind of focused and themed on air war, air combat in 1991 over the Gulf. It's kind of, keep a theme going. Yeah. All right, guys, I think a last chart here on the, look forward to see the real thing. Awesome, cool. It's too tired to type and make sense. Yep. Yeah, Wikipedia is the common denominator of common knowledge. It is, but again, here's the secret sauce. And here's where Wikipedia can really help you out. Yeah, this is all great. It keeps you from making stupid spelling mistakes or whatever. But the part that I find, this, references. In here, if you find those helpful little PDFs or links to other web pages or whatever, it's kind of a crapshoot, but the long and short of it is, down here in their citations and their references, their bibliographies, this is where you find the good stuff. Not the best source, because again, Wikipedia, but it leads you to the good sources. And sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. With that Iraqi document, we definitely got pretty lucky on that one. That's nice. That actually helped me a lot. That R60MK and R27R, especially that R27R, that fundamentally changed the game. Fundamentally changed the game. That's going to be a big difference, because that's, are those going to be infrared, or are those going to be semi-active radar homing missiles? Those behave very, very differently in Air War C21, as they should. So the difference between the R27 and the R27R is a big one. And also the MK on the R60s. Those are your AA-10s and your AA-8s. So definitely happy about that. And yeah, once in a while you get lucky. And, you're not going to find this in Wikipedia, but you're going to find sources. And then, of course, like this, sometimes those sources have sources. And, that's where you just start doing your Google foo and see how far the rabbit hole goes. Alright, let's see what else is going on here. Mr. Chet, if no one else wants to get planted in the Iraqi soil, we might figure something out. Okay, I think, cool, I'll remember that, Rasmus, thanks very much. I'm not going to hold you to anything yet, because I think LSR 2590, that's Dylan, might also want to take a shot at this. We were talking after last week's Panzer Leader game, Tactical Combat Middle East game. Or if you guys both want to do it, maybe you guys can play each other. I don't have to, always be, playing in the game by any stretch of the imagination. I've hosted, double player games before. You guys can, check it out, and, one side can play, the Iraqis, one side can play the Americans. It's all good. Or Dylan, or yourself, or somebody else. It's all fine. We'll definitely figure it out, for sure. But suffice it to say, I can't speak for the rest of the team, certainly. In fact, I know for a fact Marty is heavily working on a Ukraine 2014-2015 Ukraine project right now. I think for skirmish? No, sorry, Ultra Combat Moderns. So he's working on some other stuff. I'm going to be doing Gulf War for about the next 4 to 5 weeks. I'm going to be hammering the hell out of that because, again, there's a lot of people in the community. I won't name them because I don't want to embarrass anybody, and sometimes, we talk about stuff in confidence, but there's a fair number of people in our community, here in SItrep, COG, on Tabletop, Beasts of War, and other people from other sites who were here and did this shit at 1-to-1 scale, or at the very least were involved in the military, were in the military when this went down. They had friends there. They had people who went there and didn't come back. They know people who were wounded. They were there themselves. I have many personal friends. In fact, I am holding in my hand right now. I won't show it because, again, it's a letter from 16 February 1991. A friend of mine in the Marine Corps wrote me a letter. What was going through on his side of the conflict. Yeah, historical documents, literally, out of my old shoebox I have in my closet. So, 30th anniversaries only come along, once, pretty much any big anniversary only comes along once. So I've been definitely wanting to hit this one very hard. Gulf War is very close to my heart. And a lot of other people in the community as well, probably more than you think. There's a lot of us running around out there. Gulf War was huge. There were a lot of people deployed over there. And when you figure that most historical war gamers are in their 40s pushing into the 50s, yeah, that's pretty much the exact time, 30 years ago, you were in your teens pushing into your 20s, your early 20s. That's when you would have been sent there. So, long story short, take however many shots you want to take. Yeah, we're going to be doing a lot of Gulf War over the next couple weeks. Alright guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the stream. Thanks very much for coming out. It was probably not the most, bone-chillingly, amazing, exciting stream around. But, a little bit of this work does get done before we present this material to you guys. So, for nothing else, it's good to at least show you that, we do check our facts. We do know what we're talking about. There is a lot of setup to go before we make these games, before we present this stuff. We do... we do check our sources, and we're not talking out our ass. I mean, we actually know, we definitely do our homework before we put these games up here. At least our historical ones. I mean, not everything we do is strictly historical, but when we say historical, we mean it. We do the work and make sure that we know what we're talking about. And sometimes it's a little dull, but hey, it's got to get done. All right, guys, thanks again. I hope to see you guys this weekend. And we'll see what kind of game we're playing on Sunday. Other than that, check us out next week. I'm sure Bill will be back, or somebody else from the Chicago part of the team. We'll be back for some more content next Wednesday. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and log off. Take care, everybody. Stay safe, and I'll see everybody going forward. Thanks again, everyone.